Hey everybody, welcome back. Now, sustainability is more than just a trendy corporate buzzword these days, as more and more companies are seriously looking at the impact their businesses have, or has rather, on the environment. Now, to tell us more about their own sustainable practices and responsible resource consumption, Cipla's Head of Impact and Sustainability, Herman Grobler, joins me this week on Health Matters because the health of our planet matters too. Herman, how's it?
Good morning, Ryan.
Listen, let's start with your job at Cipla. Tell us more about the role as Head of Impact and Sustainability.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to talk about this exciting journey. We realized that there's no planet B. And I think as a company, we adopted some aggressive targets, which we can talk about a little bit later. But it's a journey that we take very seriously. It's a journey that we need to be deliberate about. And we need to identify and manage key sustainability kind of risks, trends, and opportunities that we can do collectively as a business. And I think it's just, as I said, the deliberateness of the implementation of those strategies because they won't happen by themselves. And that's mainly what I'm focusing on.
Well, listen, what are Cipla's sustainability goals, and have you set specific deadlines for them?
Yeah, indeed. We are working very hard towards a very low carbon pathway. Reducing our dependence on freshwater consumption, pollution control, and maximizing our value from waste. As a manufacturing entity, as a distribution entity, and as a consumer-facing kind of company, we do generate a lot of and use these kind of natural resources on our route. As a global company, we have adopted 2025 targets to be neutral. And by 2030, we as a global company wants to be positive. Sure. Well, that means neutral, meaning that we will not take more out of the system than we're currently doing, taking into account that we will keep on growing and that we need to stem the tide of using of water, electricity, and waste kind of production. And by positive, meaning that we will give back more than we are taking out of the system. So it's fairly aggressive. It's not easy targets. They don't come very easily, but you have to start somewhere.
Sure.
And every little bit actually contributes to that. So they're fairly aggressive. We have very robust and digital data management systems that sits behind that. And we kind of track that progress to make sure that we're moving in the right direction.
Got you. Now, I'm listening to all of that and I'm thinking that's amazing. However, there's heavy research involved. What type of research goes into making all of that happen?
Yeah, I think it's a very, it sounds like a very simple area, but it's very technical.
Yes.
And we're reaching into partnerships across the world to try and find energy experts, water experts, and we're leaning into a lot of clever people that has done this before and other people that made successes out of this. It makes it so much easier to lean into their stable and kind of learn from that, to not kind of do the wrong stuff and actually spend the wrong time and the endurance on the wrong things. So there is that kind of aggressive kind of online system, as I mentioned. It is something that keeps us honest. It's something that it's measured at every manufacturing site across the world. As Cipla, we've got about 48 manufacturing sites, of which 2 of those are in our kind of regional status. And it's amazing that if you start tracking it and it's visible, people are consciously aware of it, and they're actually making deliberate efforts to kind of reach those targets.
Now, you mentioned water, and I heard that come up. And now I want to talk about some of the biggest resources that are affected, obviously, by pharmaceutical production. How can they best be managed?
Yeah. Energy, on the 2 plants we've got in South Africa, we can keep about 320 households kind of going on an annual basis just by the electricity we use in our 2 manufacturing plants, let alone what we use on a kind of a global status. We actually very far advanced with some solar panel investigations. We're looking at kind of backup powers. We have got sensor controls in some of our suites in the manufacturing sites. Even if at the offices, you will notice that switch off the power, we actually install kind of switches in every kind of room so that people can switch it off. It's actually just awareness. I think the renewable energy is one of the biggest things, especially in South Africa as well. And we all feel it every day. So the least we can, or the less we can use, the more we can give back into the grid and the system. So we also do a lot of offset planning, where we go to offsite kind of solar plant manufacturers, and we negotiate to buy in kind of power that's generated at a solar plant in the Northern Cape, for example, so that we can actually make that footprint even less.
These are serious commitments to change that Cipla have made. Tell us a bit about recycling as well. I know that Cipla is very big on recycling, on repurposing. There's some amazing initiatives in place.
Yep. I think the prevailing megatrends in this kind of part of the industry is that climate change and the circular economy and water stewardships are the big kind of flagpoles that everybody is working towards. We have started quite a few kind of fun initiatives in the business. Some of them are, as I said, on the big side, but there's a big education campaign around this. Education is so important to get people acknowledging that they also have a role to play. We cannot stand back and say, somebody else will do this. And somebody else will make the difference. It actually starts as small as you making a decision. Do I recycle at home?
Sure.
Do I have a choice on the plastic straw that gets offered at a restaurant? Or merely do I do some rainwater harvesting at home? And it starts as small as that. And from that point onwards, it kind of, builds up nice momentum going up. So at Cipla, we started a serious paper reduction kind of drive. On some of our medicines, we are now doing QR codes on the outside of the boxes, which means that little paper that's folded inside the medicine, which is called a PI and PIL.
Yes.
That little paper, when you take it out, you can never fold it back.
No, never.
Exactly, that one is now coming in a QR code format. So if you have a clever phone or a smartphone, you'll be able to access that kind of electronically. There is still a piece in there which will be a kind of an on-hand kind of printed material, but at least it's reduced by half at least. We also in the offices, we're printing about 3 million pieces of paper just in our business on an annual basis. And by removing printers and kind of getting the awareness kind of heightened, we already reduced 30% of our print volumes. Small little changes, small little tweaks, but they're making a difference. You've mentioned the upcycling of marketing equipment as a consumer-facing kind of brand. We have a lot of material that we create, banners, pull-up banners, beautiful canvas that can be reused. We'll re-sew that back into backpacks for our kids at our creches. We use it in various kind of multiple kind of gifting ideas that we give back, carrying bags for our doctors at KOL meetings and the like. We're also very far advanced on an inhaler recycling project. We are very fortunate to be more than a 50% shareholder in respiratory in South Africa. And obviously the inhalers or the asthma inhalers is 50% plastic and the other 50% is the medicine. And if you remove those two and you can separate them, that plastic can be recycled again. So we are working with some pharmacy groups to actually collect those inhalers and actually then recycle them. And a beautiful circular economy story that sits behind that will go into bricks. And a brick can take about 10% of that plastic before it loses its structural integrity. And we then use that again in building some creches and some of our healthcare facilities in the communities. So it's that kind of deliberateness that you don't just do one thing. You have to join the dots from that point onwards and make that circular economy properly working for ourselves.
Incredible. Now, I want to know about this because I've heard this in the building, walking through the reverse vending machine. It's a great idea. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, the reverse vending machine is a lovely kind of idea. It's Imagined Earth is a company. And this part of the world, we partnerships a lot with people, and it's less competitive of nature because the need on both the environmental and the social side is so big that as a single entity, we cannot move the dial. We can move the dial, but we cannot move it alone on a national basis. So the reverse vending machine is exactly one of those partners with Imagined Earth. You would have seen some of these machines at some of the shopping centers already. If it's the barcode on the product and it's recyclable and identifiable, you bring it to the machine, you scan it through the slot, and it gives you 5, 8, 13, 15 cents, more or less what the value of the plastic or glass is worth, gives it back onto an app. You can then exchange that credit for either airtime, you can go to Pick and Pay, or you can buy fuel with it. And up to date, only with 3 machines in 3 venues in South Africa and our offices, we have collected 26,000 pieces of waste that most probably would have landed on landfill. That equals about 2.2 tons of waste. And it's small, but it's making a huge difference. And it's the right glass, it's the right plastic, and it obviously then get utilized in a proper recycling and upcycling process.
There is some serious work being done at Cipla. I know the colors are blue, but in actual fact, they could very well be green because that is the way that the company is going. Herman, thanks for your time. And I think it's very insightful, I think, for people to know specifically when they're taking a product off the shelf or they want to know a bit more about the brand's investment in a healthier and greener future. Cipla are heavily invested in all of the above.
Exactly. And I think the seeds we plant today is obviously the trees that will grow for the future, for our children and the generations to come. My kind of passionate plea is just get involved some way. It might be small, it might be on an individual scale, but from that point onwards, it will make a difference. And the responsibility belongs to all of us.
Absolutely. Remember to tell your kids at a young age what's right and what's wrong in terms of the planet and how they at a young age can make a difference. At your house right now, listening to the podcast and doing little things like recycling, making a huge impact on the world as we know it. Herman Grobler, thank you so much for your time today. Thanks everyone for listening. Health Matters in association with Cipla. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, remember to rate and review the show. And of course, we'll be back soon with a new episode.